Our members, we have attained the quorum. I now call the meeting to order. So members, please be seated. Will duty staff please give Ms. Sitho a bit of help as she has trouble with her seat. All right, please be seated. And I'll call the meeting to order. First of all, confirmation of minutes CP 4110/12-13. The minutes were made available to members on the 19th of October. We have received no proposed amendments as of now. Can I have someone propose endorsement of the minutes? Unless there is any objection, I take the minutes as confirmed. All right, items for discussion at the next meetings, please refer to CP 4111/12-13. The next meeting is scheduled for the 10th of December at 4:30 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. on Monday. The administration proposes 3 items: post-secondary colleges ordinance, Cap 320, and post-secondary colleges regulation, Cap 320A. By March 2013, the relevant legislative proposals will be submitted to LegCo. Second, Education Amendment Bill 2013, and also admission of Hong Kong students by mainland tertiary institutions. Do you all agree with those 3 items for next meeting? Mr. Fernando Zhang. Chairman, thank you. We normally try to be cooperative with government's proposal, but for the first one, post-secondary colleges ordinance, it has to do with the self-financed tertiary courses. There are so many problems of late. The mainland CTU, they have over-admitted students, and this has to do with the quality of education, and also the management trying to fatten the top at the expense of the lower rank. We have received so many complaints and messages that we should deal with them as a matter of urgency. So I think we ought to allow a bit more time. I'm not sure we should make the meeting a little bit longer so that members would be in a position to listen to views in this regard. Or we can have a look at the implications of all these courses. Right, Mr. Zhang, you have no objection to those 3 items? Although we would like to have a more in-depth discussion regarding the post-secondary colleges ordinance. We have 2 hours for each meeting. Perhaps we devote a little bit more time on this particular item. Chairman, I'm not really asking for more time for this item. The whole strength of problems that you have become aware of recently. Now, we may invite the deputations to join us, and for the self-financed courses, there may be pitfalls and traps and so on. Awareness of the problems might facilitate our discussion of this particular item. Okay, let's hear from other members. Mr. Kenneth Chen, Chairman, I go along with Mr. Fernando Zhang. Now, the post-secondary colleges ordinance, this arises from the development of the post-secondary colleges. Now, we're dealing with the self-financed post-secondary courses, I think we ought to have a look at the current situation or the future development, over admission or whatever. We have to understand the problem before we can discuss the issues. Ms. Sitho? Yes, Chairman, the review of the post-secondary colleges, there is an urgency to this because a bill is on the way, and I think we ought to have a look at the current state of play, in particular the private institutions and also the self-financed courses. I don't think it's a good idea for us to discuss 3 items in 2 hours, because this would not be fair to any one item. Perhaps these post-secondary colleges and the self-financed courses should become a subject for one single meeting that would be a lot more focused. Any further views? If not, then I will have a word with the Vice Chairman. Now, we met the Ningnan students together last time. Perhaps after the meeting I will have a word with the Vice Chairman. With a view to having more focused discussion. Yes, maybe a special meeting. Yes, I would have a word with the Vice Chairman. Okay, then let's move on to today's discussion items. Shall we invite the administration in, please?
我哋會後我再同你傾傾嚇。政府嘅官員請咗未啊？
入緊嚟啦，請緊。
使唔使讀佢名出嚟？
歡迎各個官員上。
事務委員會。
睇睇。佢哋第一次嚟啦。
好，首先呢，我代表
On behalf of the panel on education, I'd like to welcome government officials, Mr. Kevin Young, Undersecretary for Education, who's here for the first time on behalf of the administration. Right, item 1, extension of examination fee remission scheme for needy non-Chinese speaking students. Please refer to paper CB 4111/12 to 13, (03). Before we get down to our discussion, I'd like to invite the official to brief us on the paper. Undersecretary. Chairman, let me say a few words in this regard. Chairman, members, the government has been very concerned about the development of non-Chinese speaking students. We hope that they will be integrated. Hong Kong is predominantly Chinese speaking, so if the non-Chinese speaking students can master Chinese or Cantonese, it would certainly help them with the integration. So we would help them get accustomed to the local education system and learn Chinese well. Over the past couple of years, we have introduced a number of measures. We have the guidelines for Chinese. We also have the courses for the non-Chinese students. We are aware that some non-Chinese students would, depending on their Chinese proficiency, would like to sit for other examinations in addition to the Hong Kong exam. Now, for the GCSE, they are subsidized, but some non-Chinese students feel that the level is a little bit low and they may not be in line with their proficiency in connection with their future pathways. We have consulted the ethnic minority organizations, and we would extend the scope of this subsidy. We will include 3 examinations. That is the IGCSE examination, the Chinese subject, the GC Advanced level, AS level examination, and also the GCE A level examination in relation to Chinese. Under the subsidized scheme, the non-Chinese students applying for this will only pay for $567, equivalent to the DSE Chinese. The balance will be picked up by the administration. In order to further assist these students in 2012 to 13, the revision scheme will be expanded to cover the three types of examination. Those who fulfill the means test will get full or partial remission. They either pay $567 or $231. Now, we anticipate that in 2012 to 13, the financial implication will be $3 million, and the additional disbursement under the scheme will be something like $0.2 million a year. However, we need the Finance Committee's endorsement of the funding proposal. With the support of the Education Panel, we plan to make the application on the 30th of this month. And this is somewhat different from what we indicated in the paper. We have considered the procedures of the Finance Committee, and we've also had a word with the HKEAA, and the application will be deferred to the middle part of December. With members' endorsement, those non-Chinese speaking students taking part in the 2013 examination will stand to benefit. All right, thank you very much, Under Secretary. And now I'll throw the floor open for questions. Would members who are interested to put questions? Right, I try to work out a number before I allot the time. Tam Yu Chung, Fernando Zhang, Kenneth Chen, Ip Kin Yun, Albert Ho, Starry Lee. 6 members. 3 minutes for questions and replies. Mr. Tam Yu Chung. Chairman, thank you. With regard to the extension of the examination fee remission scheme, we are in support of this because this will be of assistance to the needy non-Chinese speaking students. They do experience difficulties with the Chinese examination. So we would like to help them with our resources being made available. The exam results, would they be recognized by local universities? What is the current situation like? Do you have any information in this regard? Under Secretary? Chairman, thank you. Under the JUPAS arrangement, the institutions subsidized by the they will be required to have level 3 in Chinese, and that is an institution subsidized by the UGC, the GCE, IGCSE, and GCEA level. The Chinese level requirement will be at level C, and if they attain C to E, then they would be recognized by local institutions. Now, in Hong Kong, those students taking part in these international examinations, what is the number standing at, and how many of them are non-local Chinese? Well, give us a ballpark figure, please. Well, I'd like to have the distinction between local and non-Chinese speaking students. Under Secretary, yes, defer to my colleagues. For non-Chinese speaking students taking part in IGCSE, GCE, and GCA level. Take last year, for instance, there were about 1,000 students. Mr. Tam, what is the total number of students taking part in these exams? Well, we track the non-Chinese speaking students. We don't have the total number. Do you need any supplement? Mr. Fernando Zhang. Chairman, we support the extension of this remission scheme for the needy non-Chinese speaking students. Now, this remission is only one small step out of the whole string of things that we ought to do. The NCS students are experiencing a lot of difficulties to gain entrance into the exam into universities. The EOC had a report. 3.2 in junior secondary and 1.1% and 0.59% of them are in tertiary institutions. Now, the declining percentage is due to the fact that they don't have sufficient Chinese and they have no option but leave the local education system. I think in the long run there ought to be a course which uses Chinese as a second language. In 2017, the UK is going to abolish the GCE, and they will be phasing out the system and replace it with an alternative system. Thus, the government hasn't any timetable. Even the chief executive mentioned such a course which uses Chinese as a second language. Does the Education Bureau or indeed the administration have any timetable to design a course which uses Chinese as a second language? Under Secretary, now the key consideration is to help the non-Chinese speaking students. We'd like to help them integrate into the local community. In principle, where possible, they should be integrated into the Hong Kong education system. They should learn Chinese well for future pathways. Now, we realized that they didn't start learning Chinese, or they were not part of the Hong Kong education system since kindergarten, and if they join at the secondary school level, they would experience considerable difficulties. So what the Education Bureau does is to offer them tailor-made services like tuition or adjustment of the curriculum to help them learn Chinese well. In terms of assessment, the Chief Executive, let me say a few more words, Chairman. The Chief Executive mentioned an assessment or curriculum which uses Chinese as a second language. We are still looking at that, Mr. Zhang. So you're still considering whether you're going to implement the manifesto of the Chief Executive?
Claudia Mo, Miss Regina Ib, and one more member. Well, this is something new. What the Chief Executive says he will do, he may not do so in the end. There is a report from the Equal Opportunity Commission. I think my colleague quoted the statistics from this report. Some of the data is from 2011, and in February this year, there was a motion passed in the LegCo, which is about showing concern to the learning environment of ethnic minority students, and there is also this, and it's also related to the development of courses using Chinese as a second language. I've been following this issue since 2006, and Undersecretary, you offer me the same answer as I got in 2006. So if you now, the Civic Party will, of course, support the funding application in order to help these students. But this is just the transitional stage. I hope we can, in the end, develop courses using Chinese as a second language. The Chief Executive, in his manifesto, page 29, he says, come up with a program or a curriculum using Chinese as a second language. Now, you may be new to the post, but can you undertake this as the direction? But you can, please tell us if you can give us the undertaking. We cannot. I can't. Not now. The support to non-Chinese speaking students. We've been providing assistance to them since 2006, and we are consolidating experience from the past to see which measures we are to keep and how we're to improve the existing ones, as well as to address the proposal raised by the Chief Executive during his campaign. We are reviewing the situation comprehensively, and after that, we will come back to the panel to review on that. As for timetable, now I cannot give you any undertaking on that. We understand that you are new to the post. Can you follow up on the matter? Now, follow-up question. Now, every year you have to come to the education panel before you go to apply for funding at the Finance Committee. So it means 1 year later we'll have to go through the same phases, or we will have something new in the next year for these students. Please wait till I call your name, Undersecretary. I'm a bit anxious to answer. We are proposing the extension of the scheme. So once you give us your support, then next year we don't have to come back to the panel for this same scheme. Mr. Ip Kin Yun, just now, some of my colleagues have already mentioned the major concerns, which are the teaching materials, for example, and the development of curriculum. These are our concerns. I would like to see whether there are opportunities for us to further look into this matter next time if we cannot carry on with it now. Undersecretary. Deputy Secretary, we have a series of assistance, not just confined to the development of another curriculum. We expect by the middle of next year, we can roll out the measures and come back to the panel next year. And by then, we can report on whether we will set up another curriculum. Members have mentioned that the number of non-Chinese speaking students amount to 3% of the total student population. So in deciding whether we have to set another set of assessments for them, we have to see whether the employers will recognize this other assessment criteria. Because at the end of the day, we're trying to help these students. If the new assessment is not widely recognized, it may not be very helpful to them. So if you cannot give us a specific timetable, perhaps at Christmas or nearer to the Chinese New Year, you can brief us on the progress. Do you think so? Undersecretary. Chairman, let's set it down to before the middle of next year, because Christmas is just a month away. Say within the term of the first year. Yes. Next, Mr. Albert Ho. Chairman, I remember we followed up on this matter on Home Affairs panel. We've been looking at this matter, which is about equal opportunity to education. For some time, we raised measures for improvement, so we welcome this proposal to extend it. Now, I don't think it's enough. We raised lots of issues. For example, overseas students coming to Hong Kong to enter universities, they do not have to meet the Chinese language requirements. Only students who undergo JUPAS have to meet this requirement. Now we know there are 2 official languages in Hong Kong, Chinese and English. In many countries, say for example Canada, for locals to enter universities, as long as you can master one language, it's fine. Maybe you are required to be proficient in another language, that is, for example, the language that of your own ethnic group. In Hong Kong, ethnic minorities need lots of services, but they do not have services provided to them in terms of language. We do not encourage Southeast Asians to enroll in Chinese language courses. Now, for example, Pakistanis, they are good at Urdu. They grew up using Urdu and English, but you're asking these people to take Chinese courses. Even if they go for a GCSE, they may not be competent. So perhaps Chinese English will be the language you have to take compulsory as compulsory courses, plus one more language as the requirements. Why do you have to set all these requirements? Because this is not the case before 1997. Do you agree this is one of your considerations? Please make your question clearly. Should Chinese be a compulsory course? Why not consider them replacing it with the mother tongue? This is a very broad question because it touches upon the question whether Chinese or English are must. The basic law states that the foundation of education system should stay the same. Now, before 1997, if you're proficient in English, that's fine. But you add one more now, that is Chinese. Now, you have heard what the views, and perhaps you can report back to us next time. Starry Lee, Claudia Mo, and Abraham Sheck. We support the proposal, but as said by many members, this is not enough to support the ethnic minority students in facing all the difficulties at school. Because of their poor Chinese proficiency, they face difficulties in seeking jobs and pursuing further studies. Chairman, you have said you would ask the Undersecretary to come back to report on this later in this term. Now, my question is, I think for most ethnic minorities, they have poor Chinese proficiency because their family members know very little Chinese. You know, family influence is very important in one's education. So will you also give assistance to educate the families? I also understand that for some ethnic minorities, they pursue further studies at VTC because they do not perform very well in mainstream schools. But then, in terms of curriculum and teaching method, there is no adjustment to suit these ethnic minorities. Do you know what the current situation is like? And if you do not have the information now, can you supply us with the written reply after the meeting? We will also see whether we give sufficient support to the parents of the ethnic minority students. For the concrete figure, when schools admit ethnic minority students, we have to see whether there is an adapted curriculum. We do not have the concrete figures here. As for complaints, we haven't received any as at now. In principle, the schools will have to take care of individual students in teaching and learning, but as to how they go about that, that's a school-based question. Ms. Claudia Mo. Is about the extent. Today we're here to discuss the extension of EFRS for needy non-Chinese speaking students. In fact, of course, we support this. During the summer, we took to the street asking the chief executive to honor his pledge during his campaign to give assistance to these people. Now, for ethnic minority students born and raised here, they should be exempted from the Chinese examination. Of course, that is good, but if they do not intend to enter universities, for example, those in Yomate, the Nepalese in Yomate, because they do not know Chinese, they cannot even be security guards. So we sacrifice them in our education system. There is an ethnic minority student studying Chinese herbal medicine in Baptist University. The reporters asked him how his Chinese proficiency is so well. He said he watched television programs. I also have a friend who is very fluent in Chinese, but I asked him how, and he said he learned it from watching Chinese TV programs. Now we're talking about assessment, etc., in having a curriculum with Chinese as second language. The biggest challenge is to get the quality teachers. At present, people are talking about the fall in student population and school closure. Now, can we incorporate lots of teachers? For example, to teach how to say he is a man. Just 30 seconds for the Undersecretary to answer your question. Chairman, can you speak closer to the microphone? We'll think about the views proposed by the legislators. We'll see how we can help the teachers teaching in schools with lots of ethnic minority students. And views will also be looked into during the review. Next, Mr. Abraham Sheikh.
Chairman, last term at the motion debate, I raised this particular subject myself. I'm really glad that members from different political persuasions supported the motion. The former Chief Executive, Mr. Donald Tsang, gave the undertaking that this would be endorsed. And the government has really listened to public opinions. I think it is a matter of fairness. We should remove any unfair treatment to the ethnic minorities. Second, I think Mr. Albert Ho has got a point. For them to learn Chinese, it would be difficult. We've wasted 10 years. I mean, for 15 years since the reunification, we have ignored these people. Now, if there are only 3% of the student population are non-Chinese, we can liaise with the international schools. They have wonderful textbooks, and we allow some time for adaptation. There can be an affirmation period for 10 years. In the U.S., for instance, they would be allowed into university and they can get into the mainstream curriculum. And that would be fairer to them. If you do it across the board like this, you may fund them to sit for the examination. It would be difficult because they have different textbooks. Now, we've wasted the past 15 years. Maybe in the coming 10 years, we can have a period of affirmation. They can have GSE, and they can have the second language. What's your question, Mr. Shank? Chairman, I started learning Chinese at Form 1, so I fully understand what was going on. Mr. Long Hair looked down upon me in this regard. Now, Mr. Long Hair doesn't really learn, even given the opportunity. Order, please. Mrs. Regina Ip has stepped out, although she has already put her name down. Mr. Leung Kwok-hong, make it short, please. If we waive the Chinese requirement for university, it would be good because they are disadvantaged groups. We should give them an opportunity to learn Chinese at primary and secondary schools. Not everyone will go into universities. Mr. Shek is no good at Chinese, and he's an eligible member. He's a rarity. Uh, 15 more seconds, if I may. Many South Asian kids do talk to me, and they work for their South Asian employers, and they get paid $6,000, very, very low. Well, can you waive Chinese for universities? Well, also allow them to learn Chinese. Undersecretary. Well, other than those entering university, we have to look after those who are not entering university. We should look after their Chinese proficiency as well. We encourage them to be part of the local education system, and where possible, while they are at school, we would offer them as much assistance as possible for them to learn Chinese well. Perhaps with your indulgence, Chairman, I'd like to call upon Dr. Zheng to brief you on how we can help these people. Well, back in 2008, we had a supplementary a set of guidelines. As Undersecretary said, we'd like to help them integrate back into the mainstream. In the DSE, we have the criterion referencing system, and it would be better for the students for them to be part of the DSE because we have all these recognition system. With the supplementary guidelines, we do need to have supplementary measures like training of teachers and also school-based assistance to help them integrate back into the mainstream education system. Mr. Leung, were you seeking funding? If you seek funding for the quality, for improving the quality of teachers and teaching materials, we would certainly grant the funding. Mr. Shek, don't go away. I recommended you teach them Chinese. Well, I think Mr. Leung has got a point. Under Secretary, we are taking advantage of the existing teachers in the school, and we're also providing additional teaching materials and guidelines to get this done. All right, let me do the summing up. Members would support this funding proposal. You got that, Mr. Under Secretary? All right, and the next one is the proposed creation of one Chief Maintenance Surveyor, D1 post, in the Education Bureau. Under Secretary, please. Chairman, thank you. Chairman, members. In the Planning, Infrastructure and School Places Delegation branch, we have the school premises maintenance. However, the renovation projects are getting more complicated. In the 600 or so non-estate projects, we have 200 or so that are over 40 years. For these aging schools, they are increasing the burden for emergency repairs and major repairs, and the workload is getting ever heavier. In order to improve the teaching environment, the schools are seeking subsidy to get on with the renovation. Over the past 3 years, the number of applications has increased by 10%. Sometimes these involve structural changes like the inclusion, the retrofitting of canopies, drainage, cantilever structures, and permanent consolidation work, and so on. All these would require on-site surveys and also the formulation of plans. And they will also need to seek endorsement from various departments. The procedures and the complexity of the work would make work that much more complicated. After reviewing the situation, we see the need to enhance the directorate and non-directorate staff of the SPM. The measures include 2 maintenance surveyors and also 1 quantity surveyor, and we should also enhance the supervision of the contractors. With the beefing up of the manpower, we should be able to increase the efficiency of the SPM. Like, for instance, application time will be shortened, and also the notification can be shortened for schools so that they can make earlier preparation. As while we increase the directorate staff, there should also be a chief maintenance surveyor, a permanent post, to lead and supervise all the different professional teams, and also the ever more complicated management and administrative work. We'd like to increase the quality of work so that teachers and students will be able to learn and work in a more comfortable environment. The SPM has administrative duties and decision-making process, and also in accordance with the relevant regulation that undertaken by the senior maintenance surveyor. These include the approval of the appraisal of the contractor, and also the approval of the tender document, the fine-tuning of the budget, and also the acceptance of the budget and so on. all these work should be undertaken by a professional directorate staff in the light of the number and value of the projects and the tight timetable. The SPM should be headed up by a more senior staff with professional expertise to supervise the work and also to provide the supervisory work of the contractors and to coordinate the ever more complicated work. The CMS will be able to handle the directorate duties, and he also have the expertise to take up the work. At the moment, it is undertaken by a senior maintenance surveyor. With this post, there would be greater flexibility in handling the work. With members' support, the proposal will be submitted to the ESC for consideration on December the 5th. All right, thank you. Thanks very much, Under Secretary. Hands up, please, of those who would like to put questions. Mr. Fernando Zhang and Mr. Leung Kwok Hong, I'd like to wrap this up by 5:30 because we're going to have more meeting items. 3 minutes, please. Mr. Fernando Zhang. Chairman, we will not get in the way of the post-creation of this nature. We're always supportive, but there are some schools offering special education that are very, very backward. There is a school premises that has been around for 50 years, and it is a school for students with severe disabilities. 80% of the students are wheelchair bound. At the ground level, they have to negotiate 2 flights of steps. Now, you are helping the schools to improve their school premises. There are some schools that have been around for 30, 40 years. With the creation of this post, Mr. Under Secretary, will the renovation of these schools be speeded up? Now, of the 2 schools that I mentioned, one is Chiyan and the Kofuk-yo. For these 2 schools, the premises are 30 or 50 years old. Do you have a timetable for them? These are schools for the severely physically disabled students. Would this post creation be of help to these schools? Under Secretary, will this be speeded up? Chairman, maybe I'm new to the job. I haven't got the direct information on those 2 schools as to the fine details of work and how this is being followed up. Well, within the Bureau, I'm sure that we must have received a similar request. So let me find out about it, and I will brief members on the details. With the creation of this post, now this is a support service for non-estate schools, and this is a kind of general support. It's not for the special schools specifically mentioned by Mr. Zhang. Now, this is not for schools that look after the students with particular physical disabilities. Now, this school premises maintenance section will help deal with the problems. Now, for the 2 schools mentioned, I'll have a look at this. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong. Well, Mr. Lam Tai-fai, you are from Sha Tin as a councillor. The Kofuk-yo School, you must be aware of that. When you travel on the Monshan rail, you must be able to see it. You can't miss it. Well, I fully appreciate your intention. This creation of this post may not be able to address the problem because this has to do with policies. Now the government is saying that this may not be a policy problem. Maybe they have a heavy workload and they have to prioritize. Now with the creation of this chief maintenance surveyor, will the whole thing be speeded up? I've had 2 meetings today, and whether you have new policies or no new policies, many times we're told that the senior post holder would find it difficult to cope, and therefore you need to have a chief. I mean, it is the same thing with the communication authority. And you are creating so many posts, so you have to come up with a convincing justification. How are you going to deal with the Kofuk Yo school? Chairman, for individual cases, we can follow them up with members. I must say that for certain cases, it's not simply a question of renovation. In some cases, they need to have reprovisioning. It would be rather difficult to identify alternative schools. Now, some schools are situated within the housing estate under the housing authority, and there may be a number of departments involved, and it would take a longer process for discussion. Now, the post that we are proposing is to do with the non-estate aided school renovation. The number has been increasing. Mr. Leung, the Kofuk Yo school, now we're dealing with students with severe physical disabilities, and the barrier-free access cannot be implemented within the school. There is nothing we can do about it. Under Secretary, why don't you talk with Mr. Fernando Zheng after the meeting? Yes, get in touch with Mr. Zheng after the meeting. Mr. Chairman, you should offer some assistance. Alright, that's it for this item. Let me wrap this up. Members are in support of the creation of a permanent chief maintenance surveyor post. Alright, let's move on to the next one.
局長，
Secretary. Before the Secretary comes in, who would like to ask questions for this in this item? Welcome, Secretary and other officials. The Secretariat has provided us with a background brief on this item. CB bracket 411/1213 bracket 2. This is for members' reference. Secretary, can you briefly take us through the paper? Yes, thank you, Chairman. Paper has been tabled, but I would like to take this opportunity to briefly take you through it. The first new senior high school structure and the first HKDSE examination has been completed smoothly. Students got encouraging results, and as for OLE, other learning experiences, they accomplished all-round education. They either pursue further studies or they seek employment. The Education Bureau, HKEAA, and CDC Curriculum Development Council are now reviewing the HKDSE and NSS for their better implementation in the future and to better respond to the issues raised by schools. For the setting and design of new senior school subjects, HKDSE, school-based assessments, articulation to further studies. These are some of the issues we look at. Apart from looking at the achievements, we would also like to identify some successful examples to guide us through in the future and to facilitate the learning process of students. We encourage stakeholders to participate in the review actively and to take part in the short stage discussion. Starting from now to March next year, we hope we will make early recommendations on certain issues. We hope by 2016, we can roll out the recommendations. Since August this year, the EDB, CDC, and HKEAA, through various channels, for example, forums, meetings, and surveys and focus group meetings, we collected views from stakeholders, including those from schools, professional bodies, parents, employers, and students. And in the review would build on relevant quantitative data and qualitative information collected in the meetings on the pathways of Form 6 students, the tertiary institutions' views on the graduates, we hope we can publish a report on the review next year, in early next year. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Secretary. Let me read out the names of those who have questions. Marvin Kwok, Wang Yukman, Chen Ka-lok, Sid Ho, Fernando Chung, Albert Ho, Leung Kwok Hong, Helena Wong, Chen Kwok Chu, and Mr. Ip Kin Yun, and Starry Lee, who's just raised her hand. Anyone else? All right. 11 members. 3 minutes for question and answer. Mr. Ma. Thank you, Chairman. I'm mainly concerned about the art education in high school. Many who are in the education sector write and say that in terms of visual art, fewer and fewer students are enrolling for visual arts examination. For some schools, there is a drop of 40% in just 2 to 3 years. Now, on the mainland, they are putting lots of effort on creative industry. There is a rise in students enrolling in these courses, so you see a very striking difference here. I don't see how our education system or curriculum system can encourage more students to take these courses. In terms of university admission, it seems that they do not really encourage students to take these courses too. Thank you for the question. Now, the fall in students taking a visual arts examination is a relative concept. Students also have to go through other learning experience, which will be taken up as a reference for universities in admission. We open up creative education, which is related to visual arts. We are very optimistic. We are offering flexible pathways for students. Meanwhile, we also encourage more students to enroll in these courses. Mrs. Share, supplement. In terms of number of candidates, music 240 and visual arts 4,501. So altogether 4,700 students enrolling in these courses. For economics, Chinese history, and geography, of course, these courses do not have a high number of candidates. For tourism, 4,038 students enroll in it, and another 8. For health, 918. That's why we say it's a relative concept. You told us 4,000 odd students enroll in the examination, but then in 2004, over 8,000 students enroll in these courses. So do you consider we don't have a problem here? Perhaps we can supply you with a written reply after the meeting. The objective situation is we offer more choices to students in NSS. They have over 1,000 choices under this new structure. Mr. Wang Yukman, when you look at this review, the government is boasting on its achievement. For areas much criticized, we raise these areas, but then you try to brush these aside. For example, in paragraph 7 about liberal studies, you simply say that you will use internal guidelines to ensure that the questions are not leading questions. I remember I raised this question early on before you took office, Secretary. The question was confusing and is a leading question. It asked people not to vote for people from political parties like ours. I raised this issue, but you simply brush it aside. So let's put it down as me having a conflict of interest here. Now let's turn to another issue, the subject with a long title, BFSAS. Now you simply give a very broad answer to the doubts of teachers. In this subject, there is a drop of 25% of enrollment. So you see, this is they experience serious problem here. But then in the reply in the paper, you simply give a very brief answer. That's why I'm saying you boast on your achievements. The HKDSE actually dragged down the standard of students. Lots of teachers know very well. When students enter universities, they will face lots of challenges. We only have limited time for the discussion. I've already spent 2 minutes on this. I want to say for the whole review, you're simply boasting on your achievements. You are not serious about this review. I gave you 2 examples already, and I think most of my colleagues have received a document from teachers showing concern towards this review. The teachers are sitting upstairs, so please give a better response, because in your paper you simply put it down in one line. So, BAFS. For business accounting and financial studies, lawmakers receive furthermore information because views have been expressed through various forums and seminars meetings. Now, we have heard the views from the sector a lot, in fact. So we're trying to cut down on the number of comments we take in the review. May I defer to Dr. Cheng from HKEAA to answer the other question. I think we can answer the question in two parts. First, we're not boasting. We're not. We're simply being practical in trying to understand how the questions are received. We held lots of forums and seminars to collect views. Please be brief. And later we will give questionnaires to teachers to collect their views. Secondly, I think Mr. Wang is talking about question 3 in paper 1. After the review, in fact, after the examination, we reviewed the performance of the students. They did not perform very bad. They could express themselves and respond to the political parties' issues. Even as long as their answers are supported by data, is fine. Mr. Chen Kai-lok, over the past few years, NSS caused lots of pressure on teachers and students alike. So if you want to praise anyone, you should praise the teachers for all the efforts and commitment they have given. Now, some may query why we have to spend $500,000 on something. In the review, please also see how you can help the frontline teachers. We are in the double cohort year. To determine whether the new system is successful, you have to see look at the performance of the students. But do you have enough school places? 15,500 places for 30,000 students. It means over 10,000 students cannot enroll in universities. So who is the loser, the system or the students? So next time when you're back, I hope we can look at this issue. In your review, please also look at this issue. Lots of students are very frustrated because they do not perform bad, but then because of the shortage of university places, they cannot get admitted into universities. Another point is about those students with special educational needs. HKU and a Society for Blind People conducted a study which states that for some of these students face lots of challenges in terms of OLE and SBA. The lesson time and the design of the curriculum do not allow for more room for these students. So these students cannot meet the requirements under the NSS. Are you aware of this report? And if you've read it, so what do you think about it?
First of all, Chairman, members, first of all, resources. in the course of the review, we will pay particular attention to the allocation of resources. Second, number of places. If you look at the 70,000 odd students, 38% of them make the grade for universities. That's the premise. 15,000 odd got the subsidy. Whether this is adequate or not, we have the universities from mainland, private universities, and Taiwan universities. We'd like to maximize the opportunities there. Third, in terms of special education, I was involved in this myself. The Hong Kong EAA has also made the arrangement. We do offer on-site assistance. We extend the time, or we make a special arrangement for them. I've read the report myself, and for individual cases, we can certainly offer more explanation. The Hong Kong EAA does have a lot of measures, and this is the key area of concern to them. Ms. Sit Ho, well, this paper, has a couple of pages. So we're told how many will get how many points, and how many will have post-tertiary education. 69% of them who make the grade for sub-degree courses. What about the remaining 31%? They up to Form 6. How come they only get 1 point for Chinese and English, and 80% have enrolled in sub-degree programs? Now, there are some tertiary institutions that are over-enrolling, and you include this in the 81%. I think when we review the NSS, we have to look at the actual scores, the actual ability in terms of liberal studies, languages, and also the electives. The HKEAA floated 3 questions in Tower 23. First, this has increased the workload of the teachers and students. Second, there is not enough lesson time. And third, there are concerns expressed about the depth and the breadth of the curriculum of the subjects they're teaching. Now, that's precisely why we are asking for small class teaching for secondary schools. If there is not enough time for lesson time, if the teachers are working under crushing workload, can't we take advantage of this opportunity of a decline in secondary school population to implement a small class teaching and not close the schools, so that we can have a bit of hiatus, a bit of breathing time for the teachers? Now, they experience problems. The problems stem from junior secondary time. If we allow some breathing space for the schools and implement small class teaching, then we will not be only witnessing all these problems. Now, we have the permanent secretary with us. Last week we met over 100 deputations. The permanent secretary was nowhere to be seen. You were behind the scene, and you were taking the decision as if you were a accountability official. And your question, please. Within the Education Bureau, the permanent secretary or the secretary for education, with regard to these 3 questions highlighted by the Hong Kong EAA, how will you address them? The answer lies in small class teaching. How will you address that? Secretary, thanks very much for the question. First of all, the HKEAA has highlighted these problems, and we have done a number of things. When we look at the curriculum, we look at the depth and the breadth of the curriculum. We will increase flexibility and increase lesson time, and we put back the examination schedule so that more time can be set aside. And that all these are intended to release the pressure and reduce the burden. I must emphasize that the permanent secretary was otherwise engaged last week. And let me just remind members that there are 3 minutes for questions and replies. Please do not ask question up to 2 minutes 45 seconds. Mr. Zhang, while I support the 344 reform, but as to this review paper, I find these very disappointing. In particular, the special education. There is no mention of that. The paper is silent on this. Like the initial paper on the 334 reform paper. I mean, we have been fighting for this to happen. We have been fighting for this to be extended to special education, but the paper, the review paper, is completely silent on this. Are there no problems with the special education? Has it got nothing to do with the 334 reform? There are some applied learning electives that are not available, and students have to travel across the districts for a particular subject, and they have to pay the other schools for that. And Mr. Kenneth Chen also mentioned that the Association for the Blind had a survey conducted with Hong Kong U. 55% of the students were denied any subjects to do with PE. And they were not even given an opportunity to take these subjects for those visually impaired. Integrated education in the entire secondary education, it would have profound implications. There is such discrepancy in terms of learning abilities. The class size is simply too large. It would be very difficult for them to manage. Now, in this report, there is nothing whatsoever mentioned in this regard. Perhaps you might, I'm not sure whether you're going to conduct another review regarding special education and integrated education in the context of NSS. Secretary, why no mention in the report? Well, I defer to Permanent Secretary. Mrs. Chair, thank you, Chairman. Thanks very much for the question. Maybe we haven't gone into sufficient detail. If you refer to Parent 12, the review covers the period from August 2012 to February or March 2013. Now, this is a massive revamp. It would take quite a bit of time to complete. We understand members' concerns. Now, that's why we've brought this up in this first review. We'd like to look at this together with members. And Para 23, we've highlighted all these concerns, and they include the student learning discrepancy and the need of special education. 30 more seconds, if I may, Chairman. Now, in terms of special education, we have school-based assessment, SBA. We are lengthening the preparation time, the assessment time. We also have assisting tools and special assistance. We may consider waiving the SBA or part of the SBA. All these are being looked at. We will bring members up to date. We haven't neglected this particular aspect. All right, time's up, Mr. Albert Ho. Para 5 of the paper refers to the SBA, school-based assessment. Now, you have the standards referenced reporting to assess the students. You don't have any fail grade. Well, I mean, it would have a great pressure on the students, and also for the teachers. Without any fail grade, how would you distinguish the abilities of the students? Now, you have have you ever considered the fact that for some students, by the time they hit Form 3, the conventional education system may not be suited to them. They may have other abilities. It would not be good enough for them to move up the conventional hierarchy. If you train them in alternative subjects, and they may be able to excel. Third, history is important. Now, if we have classical Chinese, now you have the Chinese philosophy and language all mixed into one. If we have some bit of classical Chinese, it would be important. Secretary, all right. Let me address these questions first, and I call upon Dr. Zhang. Now, starting from Form 4, we have the 30-odd subjects available. Now, there are some who may be suited to the grammar school, and the 30 or so applied subjects, and they're available to them. I cannot elaborate all these for members. Some would be happier if they switch to the other subjects. I can defer to Dr. Chen in a moment, but we have the standard referencing reporting. Dr. Zhang. Chairman, we don't have the fail grade, but the students and the teachers are moving in the same direction. We have the standard reference reporting system here. There are 5 levels, 1 to 5. Each level will have the descriptions and also the exemplars for the students. Students and teachers would know what is supposed to happen if they want to achieve a certain level, and the students would look at their own abilities and work out their own objectives and their own method of preparation. And this year, with the introduction of the standards referencing reporting, we have posted the samples of answers on the web for 24 subjects for students' reference. Right, Dr. Chen, history subject. Yes, indeed. Now, our Chinese subject is more like applied Chinese, but we have enhanced the history element. At the junior secondary education, history is a compulsory subject. In senior secondary, it's not a compulsory subject, but we do have liberal studies which look at issues from multiple perspectives. Mr. Leung Kwok-hong, Chairman, language, philosophy, and history are 3-in-1 in traditional Chinese. I mean, we never heard of any applied Chinese in the past. Where we have the culture. We emphasize culture in our national education, and our national education is really a fiasco. I've been to Osaka, and there was an electorate who is from Shengshui. Now he fell in the local system. His mother is Japanese, and he's gone to Japan, Osaka, for further education. Now the problem lies in the fact that there is a lack of university places in Hong Kong, and he got eliminated. Now you have a system of elimination here. It doesn't make sense how many points they score as long as they get a place in university. Now, like Mr. Albert Ho said, if they fail to get into university, you train them vocationally, and then they can be allowed another option at a certain level, and people are shoved all the way to sub-degree programs, and they move on from Ivy. There are so many victims that I've come across on a daily basis. I think you have to think about it. In Japan, they have been in the doldrums for 20 years. Their GDP is no better than ours. I think one of the reasons is that they devote so much to education. You look at Singapore, you don't devote resources to education. You are treating the symptoms, and if people are hungry, you say that they are suffering from stomach ache. Now you have the 5 different levels. I think you are replicating from the Russian system. What are you doing here? I think you are taking a retrograde step. of those who are educated in the mainland, they must realize what's going on. Your question, please. I don't have any question. I just like to lay out the problems for them. If you do not conduct a review, a comprehensive review, if you do not implement small class teaching for the stakeholders, the students, and the school management people, if you don't implement that, then it's a waste of time. You are given an opportunity. Tai-fai spent all Saturday talking about this. He gave up his football activity. You've got about a week's time. What are you going to do with this? Well, I don't think the secretary can answer your question. Well, perhaps you can chat with him in private.
Ms. Helena Wong. I'm not sure whether I have to declare interest. I teach liberal studies at university. Lots of teachers told me there is a big problem about insufficient lesson time in the NSS, so students have to go back for lessons during the summer holidays. So I hope you will review this issue. Next, about SBA, you have 12 subjects with SBA. Teachers are asking for a cut in the number because the SBA add to the workload of teachers and to the pressure of students. Paragraph 7, you talk is about liberal studies. Of course, as a liberal study teacher, I support this subject. In terms of implementation, what sort of assistance you can give to the teachers? For example, I think the IES is something good, but it's independent inquiry study, so teachers have to look at the individual projects of students. Without small class education, how are you going to give support to the liberal studies teachers so that they can look at the individual projects of students under IES? In university, when I asked university students to write a paper, I have to discuss with them on a one-to-one basis. I have to teach them how to come up with a topic and with methodology. I think you have a lot of good things here. For example, emphasis on critical thinking, analytical thinking. But in paragraph 7, you already mentioned that 90% of students attain level 2 or above in at least 5 subjects. However, you say, however, they have to put in more effort in terms of analytical skills. So they are not well equipped in this area. You have very good ideas, but how can you ensure students can acquire the right methodology, be it quantitative method or qualitative method? How can you ensure that? I don't think these are something easy for a high school student to grasp. I don't want them to get to take a misstep. So support. How do you support liberal studies teachers? Ms. Chen. The most important thing we have to do in terms of liberal studies is to enhance the breadth and depth of the curriculum so that teachers will not be left confused and the students will know what they're required of. We will gather consolidate experience gained. We also have online support. We will enhance the online materials. Resources school give to liberal studies. We will liaise closely with the teachers in order to look into this, further look into this issue. Mr. Chen Kwok-chu, when I first read this paper, I read the title, Review on the Implementation of NSS curriculum and assessment, but it's a broad subject, but with very few pages only. When we talk about review, we have to look at the objectives. Let's look at paragraph 10 and 11. But after reading them, I do not see what the objectives are. It's only when I enter the website that paragraph 2.1 to 2.2 is related to the review. That's why I'm saying you do not give us a clear picture as to what you would like to do. If I didn't go to the website and just read the several pages you supply, then I would be left extremely confused. As to how you go about the review, you mentioned you will survey different stakeholders. Paragraph 9 is confusing to me. 400 odd schools were surveyed, and you got the responses from 50,000 odd students, and you spent only several months on this. How do you get their responses? A review on oneself, usually it ends up in boasting. This is the first review of the NSS, of the NAS. Will you defer the task to universities for a comprehensive review? We're talking about long-term influence here. You cannot simply rely on some staff in your team and say that you have a lot of achievements. When I look at the input of parents, teachers, and principals, how are you going to assess that? You simply look at the output. What about the input? It's not comprehensive enough. Will you ask one or two universities to conduct the review? Thank you for the question. Hundreds of professors from different universities, principals, teachers, and other people from our community are involved in this review. We just started the exercise this August, and the first stage will last until March next year. They are using EDB's resources to review themselves. Will you ask a third party to review? This is just the first stage. Secretary, paragraph 10 and 11, they are not the objectives of the review. Yes, it's a good point. Mr. Ip Kin Yun and Starry Lee lost Mr. Charles Mock. This is of big concern for members, and in August we had a seminar. I would like to thank the EDB and the HKEAA for sending someone to attend the seminar. Now, I share the views of Mr. Chen Kwok-chi and other members when I look at this paper. That is, what do you want to review? In paragraph 11, it says you want to improve on the existing arrangement. This is rather of a rather low level. The permanent secretary said it's only the first stage of the review. I agree, it's all right for the first review, but when will the second stage take place? In the second stage, maybe by that time, perhaps we will have lost some crucial information gained in the first few years. So can you conduct the two stages of the review in parallel? As for the scope of the review, in paragraph 15, it states the points you would like to review at present. Now, these points are of concern to teachers, as we learned from meetings and seminars. Now, there is another point as mentioned by members. For example, the class size, the ratio between teachers and classes. All these hinge on the resources provided by the EDB to frontline teachers to do their job. We can see that the teacher-student teacher-class ratio lag behind in our schools. Some teachers and students from BFS are here. The subject is about businesses, financial planning, and accounting. Now, we're talking about 3 elements here, and teachers and students have to learn these 3 elements. It's rather difficult, but they have to do it with fewer resources. Timetable for review. Dr. Chen, thank you for the comment. We have heard lots of views, including that of Mr. Ip and some other members here. That's why we set down short, mid, and long-term review stages for the review. Ms. Starry Lee, 3 questions. Thank you, Chairman. Firstly, about the NSS and how this and liberal studies add to the pressure and workload of students and teachers. I think you should give us a comprehensive review. There is an increase in Form 6 student numbers. In the past, we had A-levels exams, so the number of Form 6 students was smaller. But at present, the class size of Form 6 is the same as Form 5. So Form 6 teachers face lots of stress. How are you going to deal with that? You are using standard referencing now, but it frustrates lots of students. The number of students attaining a university admission requirement outnumbers the number of university places. How are you going to solve this problem? Thirdly, with this DSE, the results of DSE is, of course, one of the factors parents will look at in selecting schools for children. Now, some parents do not simply look at how many outstanding students the school produces. They will look at the cultivation of talents. So can the parents come to the EDB for information about the ability of schools enhancing students' strengths? Some teachers are not looking for elite schools necessarily. They are just looking for schools which can enhance students' strength. Secretary, please. May I defer to Permanent Secretary? Thank you, Ms. Lee. We can provide information to students as reference only. Universities are looking for the best candidates. So it all depends on the candidates applying for the places in terms of their results. A-levels used non-referencing. So even when lots of students performed very well, then we still have to select a few to rank the students. But under NSS, the focus is on certification. So, for example, if 100 students got outstanding results, these 100 students will get the same grades. So there is stability. With enhancement of education quality, more and more students will get the 3-2 requirements. We have about 100,000 candidates for the exam this year and next year. 38,000 for places for sub-degree courses and 75,000 altogether for degree and sub-degree places, and 3,300 subsidized places. We will explore various channels to expand this. Next on the agenda, measures to address issues arising from the drop in the high school student population, follow up on the special meetings held on 2nd and 3rd November. I've received a letter from Mr. Ip Kin Yun. I'm sure members have already received it and read the letter. He proposes to set up a subcommittee under this panel. Mr. Mok, we have already finished the discussion on that item, so please be on time next time. Now, when you speak, may I remind members that under the Powers and Privilege Ordinance of LegCo, you cannot propose any motion which has which you have conflict of interest. And before you speak, you have to review the nature of the conflict of interest. If there's no proposal for amendments, we'll throw open the floor. Yes, Mr. Lee. I would like to propose amendment. Written proposal for amendments. Can I have the written proposal, please?
我睇晒先，我睇晒收晒所有修正案先，跟住我叫你講嘢。我睇睇先啦，俾1分鐘我啊。好啊，好啊。
Please let me have 1 minute to read it.
OK， 仲有冇其他修正案？
The further proposal for amendments? If not, I will get photocopies of this proposal first, please. Copies for government officials too. Before the copies are done, Mr. Ip, can you tell us about the motion? Mr. Ferdinand Chung, may I have some time to speak after Mr. Ip has spoken? Yes. Right. Thank you, Chairman. Members may know that in the coming 4 years, we'll see a drop of 35,000 in the number of high school students across the board. 10,000 in Form 1, but for other forms altogether fall by 35,000. And this is not the end. We'll see further drop in the population. As at 2080, we see a fall of over 50,000. Last Friday and Saturday, at this very room, we received over 100 principals and people who are concerned about this issue. They told us the worries of parents and students as well as those in the education sector. Their concern or worries are mainly about, firstly, whether the sector can have a smooth transition. The education sector proposed to adjust the class size to ensure a smooth transition. The first year will see a drop of 5,400 people. Is a drastic fall. If we can reduce the class size to 30, then we can maintain the current situation.
Well, the second key issue is whether we can take the opportunity to improve the quality of education. I remember Mr. Liang Yuzhong made this point that it's not a matter of the opportunity arising from this, it's a matter of our vision. We don't want to lose our students to the international schools or to overseas education system. We should have our concerns expressed. We should look after the discrepancy on the part of the students' abilities. We should look at the education approach that would favor a small class teaching, and the number of lessons is so high that it is suffocating the teachers. Given the positive conditions we have, can we adjust the teacher-student ratio? Stability has to do with the education planning, and it has to do with the vision that we have. I'd like to move this motion today, and I hope the members will support it. In dealing with this issue, I hope that the Education Bureau would have regard to these two principles and make the secondary education much better. It's all a matter of ideas. If we close the schools, then it would be really bad for the schools. And also in terms of the student population, I think that there is some mistake that has been made. Some said that this is only transitional. I think there is a cycle of 6 years. In 2018, we're going to see the peak of this cycle. This is not a short time. Now we're going to see a rise, a surge in the student population. There is still so many uncertainties because of the children born to women from the mainland who were born in Hong Kong. I mean, there is a wild fluctuation, so we have to utilize the resources to maximize the benefits of our education. Right? You can't hand the floor to anybody. The amendment has been photocopied, and we have an amendment as well as an original motion. We'll be debating on the amendment first. A joint debate? You prefer a joint debate? We don't have the luxury of time. Perhaps let's have a look at the amendment, and then I see how many members would like to speak. Your hands up, please, those who wish to speak. Helena Wong, Kenneth Chen, hands up, please, to facilitate the Secretariat.
黃碧雲睇咗你㗎啦，黃碧雲一早㗎。譚耀宗、李慧瓊、梁國雄。嗱，其實今日
All right, there are two issues. One is the original motion. The other one is to propose a subcommittee. Starry Lee, Fernanda Zhang, Helena Wong, Kenneth Chan, Sid Ho, Tam Yu Jung, only one character here. Starry Lee, Leung Kwok Hong. 8 members, equal him 9. I speak once. Of course, I want to brief members on my amendment. Alright, you don't have to speak again to facilitate the efficiency of the meeting. 1 minute each. Starry Lee, you're moving the amendment and you'll be given 1 minute, please. Chairman, I'd like to amend Mr. Ip Kin Yun's motion. The DAB supports stabilizing the secondary school education. In the light of the decline in school population, we are against the closure of schools. We amend the motion. The wordings are very clear to members. Basically, for secondary schools, we should reduce the student numbers gradually. Mr. Ip mentioned 25 or 30. We haven't had sufficient discussion. The government should consider the secondary school council and the 18 district principals' proposal of adjustment mechanism. And in the light of the short-term decline in student population, we should take advantage of this opportunity to optimize the condition, like reducing the number of lessons for teachers and encouraging teachers to further their education, and that would be of help. Okay, Dr. Fernando Cheung. Chairman, I support Mr. Ip's original motion as it stands in terms of the class size and so on. As regards Ms. Starry Lee's amendment, I think that would make it really a little bit vague, and this is of concern to me. Now, according to Ms. Starry Lee, well, basically what Ms. Lee is referring to, the government has been doing, even without the need of moving such an amendment. I would find it very difficult to support the amendment, because you're making it so vague, so airy-fairy, that the government will be let off the hook. Mr. Ip's proposal to set up a subcommittee under the panel, I support this in spirit or in practice, but I'd like to add that time is up. The subcommittee is for the next step. Can you let me get this one in? No, Miss Helena Wong. Regarding the original motion as it stands, I must declare an interest that I am a secretary of the PTU, and I'm from the educational sector. Now, we do see the urgency. We talk about a horizon of the coming 4 years. We have to be efficient. We do have the yardsticks. I don't agree with Starry Lee that we should do away with all these benchmarks, because this is not addressing the urgency in relation to school closure. But I support Starry Lee's proposal to reduce the number of lessons, and also to encourage teachers to pursue their studies. But I don't think we should do away with all these benchmarks. Dr. Kenneth Chen. Chairman, on behalf of the Civic Party, I support Mr. Ip's motion as it stands, because we do need a broader framework for us to conduct the studies. If we narrow down the scope of the study, then the focus would be very narrow. It would be there is nothing much we can do. So what I would like to see happen is the first part and the second part of the motion should be supported, and it shows that LegCo is supporting a better vision for the education sector. Ms. Sitho, I support small class teaching. Mr. Chairman, I support Mr. Ip's original motion. The key thing is to have more room for discussion. Do you prohibit even consultation or discussion? This motion may not be carried, but if we can reduce the number of lessons, if we can encourage teachers to pursue further studies, then if we can have more discussion of this nature at the subcommittee, it would be a good idea. I mean, that can remove conflicts. The school closure is really something very urgent. I think the permanent secretary should not be, will not be hiding away. She should attend the meetings. Mr. Tam Yu-chung. Well, let me add why Mr. Riley moves the amendment. Some said that this is making it too vague. We should have a broader framework. Precisely because we want a broader framework, we've heard the views of the school principals. We've also taken into account the parents' views. If we ignore the prevailing conditions, it will not be good. So we are couching the motion in such terms that we should have regard to the views of the school principals. If we make it so rigid, if we make it across the board, then we may not be sufficiently careful, because otherwise some other people might be jumping on us. We'd like to leave more flexibility in this regard. So our amendment here is more comprehensive, and I hope the members will consider supporting it. Mr. Leung Kwok-hong. Well, in the coming 4 years, 35,000, there are some figures. So the number 30 is well-founded. If you're concerned about it, you can say no less than 30. If we do not achieve that, it would be difficult for us to start talking about reducing the number of lessons, that they have a crushing workload, and they are encouraged to pursue further studies while getting paid. I mean, the next teacher would be working really flat out if you do not address the number of 30,000 in the coming 4 years. You can't work it out any other way. You can say no less than 30. Why not? Mr. Kwok-him. Chairman, thank you. I must make a declaration that I'm vice chairman of an educational sector. I own a DSS secondary school. Now, from this amendment, we get to see that at the present moment, given the current situation, the student number will be in decline, and there is a likelihood the schools may be closed. So I don't think we should allow a massive reduction in the number of schools as a result of that. And after a cycle, we may not be able to meet the demand. We shouldn't repeat the problems that we experienced in primary schools. Now here we are given all these precise figures. We haven't got any consensus. I don't think it makes sense for us to have all these figures.
Meeting is set down until 6:30, but we're in such a lively debate here, so we'll extend it to 6:45. Vice Chairman, do you want to speak on the proposed amendments? 1 minute for you. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Ms. Darley, for the proposed amendment. I think we share the same direction. And thank you for expressing your views so very anxiously. I also agree that the proposed amendment is rather vague. You deleted the details, and this is not the essence of my proposal. In fact, reduction of lesson time is already included in the original motion. You only have to look at the proposal for improvement on teacher-student, teacher-class ratio. Development of teachers. I think we can propose the discussion for this item on other occasions. May I invite government officials to respond to the comments made so far? Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to make 3 points. Firstly, we know the 61,000, student population fall from 61,000 to 50,000 odd is a transitional problem only. School closure is been going on for some time. That's why we propose to have 76 students for 4 classes and so on. And last week I already proposed keeping teaching post. I already announced that the surplus teachers will be extended for 3 more years, so that no teachers will lose their jobs because of the fall in Form 1 student population. And in this way, we leave more room for the surplus teachers for further studies. Reduction of allocation of school places. I already had in-depth discussion with principals in this regard. And this week, my colleagues and I will conduct intensive meetings with various stakeholders to come up with a consensus. I have to stress one point. All the measures will pose positive impact on the average class size. We hope through further understanding we can come up with something better in terms of the relief measures. 2 points to supplement. Please trust us for our sincerity. In fact, during the primary school closure, we already expected the school closure in secondary school level. In fact, we discussed the issue of school closure with the principals back then. At that time, the head of school places allocation unit was the one who liaised with the stakeholders. But because of the different prevailing situation in the districts, that's why we did not come to a consensus. Of course, stability is what we look for. Principals and teachers, they may also be parents. That's why we propose to shrink class size to 25 and to maintain 2 classes at 1 level. In that way, we do not have to close so many schools. In this way, we can keep the teaching post and our quality to deal with the transitional problem. It's been mentioned that I was not there at these special meetings. Please understand that, Chairman, I would like to give some information. This is not the most distressing issue. She has not answered. She has not finished yet. In fact, I met with the associations. Permanent Secretary, please focus on the item and not digress. Please understand that I have 4 to 7 meetings a day usually. The bureau and department are under one entity. You have already stated your case. I already asked the Secretary's permission for not coming to the special meetings. If there's nothing further, shall we have a vote on the proposed amendments by Ms. Darley? A show of hand. Those in support, please raise your hand. Names be recorded. We are putting it to the vote now. Do you have to press the buzzer? Yes, you do. Yes, names will be recorded. Buzzer will last for 5 minutes.
下一個又記名表決又打5分鐘，咁你咪超。
So we're going to press the buzzer for another 5 minutes for the next voting. Then we'll overrun. Well, yeah, that's fine. If the amendment is not passed, then we'll put the original motion to the vote. If it overrun, it will be only for 3 minutes.
6:50啦，係啦。 點樣？
唔使撳嘅，唔係撳嘅。
手，因為你
舉手。
All right, show of hand, please. Those in support of the proposed amendments by Ms. Starry Lee. Okay, hold it, please. Mr. Porsche, Abraham Ipkohim, Christopher Chung, and Tamil Chung. Those who oppose: Leung Kwok Hong, Helena Wong, Albert Ho, Fernando Chung, Chan Kwok Chu, Ms. Ho, Charles Mok, Ip Kin Yun. Abstain? None. 9 oppose and 5 in support. Proposed amendment not passed. Let's put the original motion to the vote. Shall names be recorded? No. Those in support, raise your hand, please. You can simply reverse the numbers. Leung Kwok Hong, Chan Kwok Chu, Chen Ka-lok, Ip Kin Yun, Charles Mok, etc. Those against? Those against, please raise your hand. 4. Abstain? None. So 9 in support of the original motion, 4 against. Original motion passed. Thank you. There's one more item on the agenda, in the motion, the proposal of setting up a subcommittee. There's already a consensus. That is to put it down as discussed item at the next meeting. Thank you. Meeting adjourned.
多謝秘書長。